going on, everybody? Welcome back into TTP Sports. And my God, just thinking of the title of this video and just the topic that we're going to be getting into today, it just really scares me to describe how fast time is going by because it honestly still feels like yesterday, last week, that the Phillies choked in the NLCS, and I'm still, somewhat not over that. But that just really shows to go you how fast time is going by, and we're basically already a couple of weeks away, basically a week away from pitchers and catchers reporting for spring training down in Clearwater, and that is a very amazing feeling. It's a huge time for the channel, with Phillies talk and all of that stuff. It's really one of the bigger mainstays on this channel right now, especially throughout the spring, the summer, and the fall. So that'll be very fun to get back into that talk on a daily basis because I love baseball. I love talking about baseball. I love talking about the sport 24/7. I love watching it. It's America's pastime for a specific reason. And, I got a lot of high hopes on the Phillies this year. I know Phillies social media, especially during this offseason, has been very dreadful to go through just because there's so many people that are, very down on the Phillies, down on Dave Dombrowski because he really hasn't done anything gigantic this offseason besides, re-signing Aaron Nola, which was a very big, re-signing. We gotta, not play down on how big of, bringing Aaron Nola back was, because that really supplements your rotation. Because if you lost Aaron Nola and say you replaced him with just a Jordan Montgomery, just for an example, because there's still plenty of people out there on the free agency market, and the Phillies, they've been reported, from Bob Nightingale and stuff as sleepers for some of these guys, under the Scott Boras agency, with Cody Bellinger and Jordan Montgomery. But I'll get into that in a little bit. I'm also going to be talking about, what Dave Dombrowski said on the WIP morning show today. So there wasn't really anything, I would say, breaking wise or things that we already didn't know. It was basically just restating the obvious. But it's definitely worthy of some talking points just because we really haven't been talking about baseball in a while here. Like, seriously, when I was going to set up this stream, the last thing I saw was probably the Aaron Nola re-signing. I think that was the last time we talked Phillies on the channel, and I think that also just shows to go you really how quiet this offseason has been for a lot of MLB teams. Really, the major thing that really just happened for the entire offseason was the Dodgers going after all those guys, signing Shohei Ohtani, signing Yamamoto, going after Tyler Glasnow, making all those big moves. It's really been the Dodgers as the team making all the gigantic changes. Really, no other team. And there's some teams making their changes, some teams going through their arbitration processes and all of that stuff. It's really basically all of that. But there really hasn't been much in terms of every single team making this gigantic move. And like as you go back and forth on Twitter, when you go through the Phillies fans that are really down on this team right now, I can understand being frustrated with the team because of what happened in the playoffs last year. But there's just some narratives that people are trying to push that I just don't completely buy, and I feel like a lot of people should be more higher on this team just because a lot of people's excuses, they want to be, oh, they're running it back with the same team that hasn't been good enough the past 2 years. Why should I expect them to be any better than they are right now? It's just, if you look at last year, let's face value. If you look at last year in the playoff run, the Phillies were better than the Arizona Diamondbacks. 9 out of 10 times the Phillies beat the Diamondbacks in that series. 9 out of 10 times. The Diamondbacks adjusted, and the Phillies, what was the main reason that, the Phillies were choked that series? It was their offense. Their offense went quiet, and that's one of the main arguments that people want to do. Like, why would I expect this offense to come up clutch in certain situations? Well, when you see this offense go off, they can beat basically any single team. When this offense was going off in the playoffs last year, they were one of the best teams in baseball, probably the best team in baseball when the offense was clicking on all cylinders. And when you're going into this season, you're getting another season of Kyle Schwarber where he's probably going to hit at least 35 plus, 40 plus home runs. He's been doing that basically in both seasons in the Phillies uniform. maybe another full consistent year of Nick Castellanos. You're going to have a full healthy season of Bryce Harper at first base. Let's not play that down at all, because having Bryce Harper for a full season definitely makes your team 20 billion times better, and he's healthy for once. So, and he's also going to be at first base, which I think benefits him a lot more, just from not having to play right field every day, using his legs and all that stuff. And I think honestly, defensively, it benefits him a lot more better, because we did see how good defensively he was last year at first base in that very small sample size. And then you're also most likely, I would assume, that you're going to be getting a full season of a consistent Trey Turner of what we saw from August on, because I think that's more of what Trey Turner is capable of rather than what we saw for the first few months last year, where I think it was just a very tough transition phase. There was a lot of things that maybe the pressure was getting to his head, and then when he finally saw the city of Philadelphia basically come around to give him that standing ovation, he finally, maybe there was a monkey lifted off of his shoulder, and he was like, okay, I belong here. I can do what I do right now. This city loves me, and I'm going to give back for this city that's showing their appreciation. And that's basically the entire run that Trey Turner went on from August throughout the entire playoffs. So I definitely can expect a more consistent Trey Turner this year. I think we should. And then when you're looking at some other guys, JT Realmuto definitely had a down year last year in terms of hitting in his own home ballpark. I expect those numbers to even out, just because it was just a very odd thing for JT. And then, another year of Bryson Stott improving, seeing what Alec Bohm can do after he finally surpassed 20 home runs. Can he finally, bring that power out more consistently? Another year of Brandon Marsh probably improving. Yeah, there definitely is some question marks surrounding the center fielder position and all that stuff. A lot of people don't like the idea of running, Johan Rojas out there possibly. And Dave Dombrowski did state this, that they were not guaranteeing Johan Rojas a center field spot. He's going to have to earn that through spring training. But yes, you've seen throughout the offseason that Johan Rojas, through many social media posts and all the reports and all that stuff, that he is putting in the work. He's, doing workouts, making his body stronger, getting in the batting cage basically 24/7, implementing stuff that this hitting staff, this coaching staff is trying to do, Kevin Long and all that stuff, to basically try to fix his game and try to make him better at the plate than when he was basically during the entire playoffs last year. I know when you see his average in that very small sample size, since he was called up, he batted over 300, but that's a very small sample size, and that would probably come back a lot down to earth because there was a lot of luck involved. The BABIP numbers and all that stuff, basically a lot of numbers would probably come down to earth in that fact. And yeah, he got exposed in the playoffs, where teams were just pounding him with fastballs and he could not catch up to them. And that definitely hurt you in the playoffs when you had a guy in that position that couldn't hit. But for the Phillies standpoint, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, you got to go spend, you got to go spend, you got to go get this big fish, you got to go get this big fish." I think one of the things that people don't understand is that when you build sustained success in Major League Baseball, when you have this long stretch of winning, this long stretch of consistency of making the playoffs, what do you need? You have your, select few that you go out there and spend your money for, you make the big acquisition for. The Phillies do have those things, obviously. They have Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, JT, who they got in a big trade, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Signing Zack Wheeler to that contract, signing Aaron Nola to that contract. Those were basically the big acquisitions. And then you supplement those big acquisitions with cost-efficient players or young players that you bring up from your minor league positions, that's where you get a Bryson Stott. That's where you get a Brandon Marsh. Even though Brandon Marsh did come over in trade, he's still basically on his rookie contract, and he's a cost-efficient player. Alec Bohm, I know he's going into arbitration, so we'll see what his number comes out. But still, at the end of the day, young player that was still basically on his rookie contract, cost-efficient player. Johan Rojas, whatever he does in spring training, if he does find a way to make the team, I do expect Rojas to be at some type of role with this team in the Major League season. So we'll definitely see what it goes to. There's still a lot of time for Dave Dombrowski to make a move if that's going to be the case for an outfielder. There's still plenty of people out there for depth signings or bench signings or platoon signings that he can still do. There's still plenty of time for that because there's still plenty of people out there on the market. So I wouldn't be shocked if Dave Dombrowski does something. They've been making a couple of minor moves over the past couple of days in terms of getting players that have AAA options to where they can send some guys up and down whenever they need to, because they do got some guys on the roster that are out of options. So you saw that with Andrew Bellotti. He got DFA'd, so Andrew Bellotti's not going to be on the team anymore. There's definitely some people that are on the Major League roster right now that I believe are out of options. So we'll see what he does. They acquired some guys that have some options, and maybe that'll open up a roster spot to where he can go out and either make a trade or go out and make one of the signings here. So there's definitely some options there. But going back to the cost efficient guys, if you look at teams like the Dodgers, if you look at teams like the Astros, a lot of the teams out there, even the Braves, for example, they have their main core of players, but then they also have that supplement of cost efficient guys to where you can interchange those guys at need be to go along with your core, and that's how you build sustained success. That's how these teams consistently make the playoffs. Year in and year out, and they're always World Series contenders. They're always favored to go to the World Series. They're always favored to go deep into the playoffs. That's how you build success. And I think that's what Dave Dombrowski is trying to do. And yes, definitely in terms of, yeah, maybe you could go out there and get a bench guy. Definitely, I would say, in terms of being underwhelmed, I was probably more underwhelmed in that aspect, just, adding some depth to the bench. Bullpen wise, your bullpen is basically the same exact thing as it was last year, just minus Craig Kimbrell. And yes, Craig Kimbrell did pitch a lot of important innings for you last year. He was very huge in terms of the bullpen success, basically throughout the middle of last year. But, he did run out of gas come postseason time, and he was basically falling back into typical Craig Kimbrell that does not come up clutch in big situations. But regardless, the bullpen is still basically the same as it was last year. They just, they're going with the same type of mentality. They're going with the closer by committee. They're going to rely on the season over Ryan Kerkering, possibly, developing more, getting, more engulfed into the major league, major league game and seeing what he can do, because he does have a lot of potential. You still have a Jose Alvarado in there. You have a Seraphine Dominguez, which fully, I do not expect Seraphine Dominguez to be as bad as he was last season. I expect there to be some middle ground there for Seraphine. You still got Matt Strahm there. You still got Jeff Hoffman. There's still some guys that have been there from the bullpen last year that I expected basically to be the same exact thing. And bullpens vary from year to year. There definitely isn't, a very consistent bullpen through a lot of teams throughout Major League Baseball. And the more and more I think about it, just because there was a big argument on Twitter that I was looking through a couple of days ago, and a lot of people were concerned about the bullpen. When I'm looking through a lot of things, World Series, I'm specifically looking to last year in terms of bullpen rankings and all that stuff. Last year, you didn't need an elite bullpen to win the World Series. That was basically it. The Texas Rangers bullpen was not elite. The Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen was not elite. They were, if you value WAR and wins above replacement in terms of bullpen, those teams were in the bottom rankings of WAR, and especially in the playoffs as well. The bullpens were not good. Basically, they're the Phillies bullpen in terms of WAR last year. They were top 3 in baseball, and the Phillies bullpen last year in the playoffs, the bullpen was very good, just minus a couple of games in that Diamondback series. Really, it was maybe like 1 or 2 games where the bullpen just wasn't good in that series, but still overall the bullpen was really good in the playoffs. It was just your offense forgot how to hit, and they went back into the chasing, this swinging at things outside the strike zone. That was basically it for the offense. But for bullpen wise and for pitching wise last year, the Phillies led all of baseball last year in terms of WAR for pitching in totality. A lot of that has to do with Zack Wheeler. A lot of that has to do with Aaron Nola. But the bullpen, in terms of all of that stuff too, was really good in that aspect last year. So the Phillies' rotation is definitely one of the best in baseball, with Aaron Nola and Zack Wheeler at the top, supplemented by the Rangers' Suarez. Taijuan Walker definitely is a question mark. I don't expect him to be as bad as he was last year, but basically we'll just see how it goes. Christopher Sanchez, we'll see how he can supplement himself into that 5th spot of the rotation. But, there's still, some things that Dave Dombrowski can do. Like, what if he does go out there and get a Jordan Montgomery at a cost-efficient price because the market was just so bad, the market crashed, and you got him at a discount. So there could be an option for that, even though I don't expect it at the slightest. But say if you do get a Jordan Montgomery, you slot him in between Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez, that makes your rotation even 20 billion times better. So, yeah, I would love to get a Jordan Montgomery in terms of this stuff here, but I'm not expecting any of those type of things. I still do think there's a move or two in Dave Dombrowski as we get closer and closer to spring training. It's just the fact that, what is it going to be? I know Cody Bellinger's out there. He's definitely going to cost a lot, though. But I'm not sure what teams are going after Cody Bellinger. There's a lot of things that people are skeptical about of Cody Bellinger. Same thing with me. Like, can he really keep up those numbers that he had with the Cubs last year after he had a few previous seasons of, not hitting the baseball well? And then he goes to Chicago for 1 year and he's lights out basically. So can you really trust that with Cody Bellinger going to another team, trying to get a big contract, trying to get a big payday? Honestly, that would be a type of situation where you give him another maybe 1 2 year deal with opt outs. That would probably be the case for him to test out free agency again. That would probably be the same thing for Jordan Montgomery. I'm not entirely sure. And even the same thing with Blake Snell. Like, seriously, the Cy Young winner is still out there and has not been signed. It is crazy with some people that are still out there and just not have been signed yet. So that is really a weird thing that has happened in terms of that. So yeah, it's even going to Dave Dombrowski, like some of the points that he brought up in terms of the interview that he had on WIP this morning. So he did confirm that the Phillies were major players for Yamamoto. They offered him a lot of money. He even said that you'd be shocked about how much money the Phillies actually offered for Yamamoto. They offered him a lot. It just came down to the fact that Yamamoto just preferred playing on the West Coast and he preferred to be playing for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So at the end of the day, the Phillies were big players in that type of market. They just, fell out to a guy that preferred staying on the West Coast, and you really can't do anything about that at the end of the day. He also did confirm that Andrew Painter, he won't start pitching until 2025. We all know with the Tommy John surgery and all that stuff. He had it last year. He's going to be missing all of this year, and basically it's going to be, getting his arm back into shape next season and all that stuff. So he's still only going to be 22 at the end of the day when that does come to light, when he eventually does come up to the majors, when his arm's all healed and all that stuff, and he's all worked up and ready to go for Major League Baseball. I would expect that to be the case next year after a certain extent of time. But yeah, it definitely sucks not having him this year. But that's the light of the road when when you have an arm that can throw over 100 miles an hour consistently. It's definitely gonna run out on you for a little bit of time there. He also did, bring up the point about young guys and, wanting to give the young guys more of a chance. When I was talking about, cost efficient players in terms of sustained success, he wants to give guys like Kirkering, Sanchez, Rojas a chance for big roles from the start of the season. So, yeah, that's definitely a. I like that opportunity because, like I said, with cost efficient players, it's just to the fact that, you know, you need guys that you can just keep implementing bringing into the roster to supplement around your core. And just from the fact that you can have a Brandon Marsh, you can have a Rojas, you can have a Bryson Stott, you can have an Alec Bohm. Like, and some of the guys that are in the bullpen too that are on cost efficient contracts. Like, you need those type of players too. It can't just be a type of guys that you're just completely buying the entirety of your roster. That's just not the way it works at the end of the day. Yes, there's no salary cap and all that stuff. It's only the luxury tax and all that stuff. But you still need those young players that are, you know, going to be helping you be effective. In terms of Rojas, I'm not expecting Rojas to be a 300 hitter. I'm not expecting Rojas to be this major power hitter and all that stuff. No. All he has to do, just be a 230 hitter. Just be a competent hitter down in that 9 hole. Just be a 230 hitter, be a 240 hitter. Seriously, if he is a 240 hitter consistently, I will do backflips. I will be doing backflips if that is the case for Johan Rojas, if that's the case. 240 hitter and providing that elite defense out there in center field. Oh, yeah, I'd be doing backflips. But, of course, yeah, if the Rojas situation doesn't work out, that's what the trade deadline is for, because there definitely will be some teams that will be in the market, some teams that are, don't perform as well as they thought they would. Excuse me there. But yeah, that would be what the trade deadline is for. And I know, a lot of people still got mad about the other day because, with the whole, Corbin Burns situation. God, my God, why can I just go without sneezing? That would be nice. I just want to get a point across without sneezing. That would be fun. But what, the other day with the whole Baltimore Orioles situation with them changing their ownership, getting new guys in there, and they already like right from the get go they make an immediate move, making that big trade for Corbin Burns, and he adds that to that Baltimore Orioles rotation. Like good for them, good for them, because with their young roster and how good they were last year, getting that taste in the ALDS last year. Sadly, they got swept by the Texas Rangers, but they got that taste of the playoffs last year. Now they add a Cy Young winner into the rotation. Granted, he has 1 year left on his contract, and he's going to be a free agent after this year, so we'll see what happens in the future with that situation. But that's a very exciting move for a young Baltimore Orioles team trying to make more noise in Major League Baseball. But, of course, that comes to the fact that, oh, why couldn't the Phillies make a trade for that? But then you're just asking for making trades just the sake of making trades. There are trades when you have to look at like what's right for the organization. Like, are we in a position to where we can just get rid of a lot of young guys in the prospect system? Where, if you're looking at the starting pitching depth down in minor league baseball, it's really just Andrew Painter, Mick Abel, and Griff McGarry. That's really just it. And you don't have Andrew Painter this year, so yeah, your starting pitching depth down there is definitely very slim. So I wouldn't blame Dave Dombrowski for not looking to move those guys. And in terms of other top prospects, it's really just, Crawford and Aiden Miller. That's really it there. So Dave Dombrowski is still trying to build up this minor league system and, to what it possibly could be in the future, to where then you can start trading some prospects for, bigger names out there and all that stuff. But yeah, it's of course, Phillies Twitter and all the complainers out there were like, oh, why didn't you make that trade for Corbin Burns? You definitely could have done that. Like, why aren't you making moves? It just gets tiring at the end of the day when you're starting to hear all those people that, are very down on this team. And a lot of people want to try to use the argument about, oh, this team is getting older and all that stuff, as they get older. Like, just because they're above the age of 30, that the team is drastically going to decline. Like, that's not going to be the case. Zack Wheeler is still one of the best pitchers in baseball. I see other pitchers in the league that are older than Zack Wheeler, and they're still out there dominating. I see Justin Verlander at age 50 billion still dominate. Not comparing Zack Wheeler to Justin Verlander. I still think Zack Wheeler is a very good pitcher in this league, and he's still criminally underrated. He's one of the top pitchers in baseball, and yeah, he's pushing up there to near his mid-30s, and yeah, he's definitely going to be getting a contract extension anytime soon. But, why can't the Phillies still perform in their early 30s? A lot of people just want to bring up how this team is getting older. Like, how old is Bryce Harper going into the season? I believe he's only going to be, like 30, 31 or something like that? He'll be turning 31. He'll be turning 32 next October. He just turned 31. How old is Trey Turner? I'm sure he's around the same age as Bryce Harper. How old is Trey Turner? He's 30 years old. 30 years old, so he'll be turning 31 this year. How old is Kyle Schwarber? How old is Kyle Schwarber? Kyle Schwarber, 30 years old. How old is Nick Castellanos? I'm sure he's like 31, 30, something around there. He's 31 years old. How old is Aaron Nola? I'm sure he's 30. Aaron Nola, 30 years old. How old is Zack Wheeler? How old is Zack Wheeler? Zack Wheeler's 33. So he's definitely the older of the bunch. How old is JT Realmuto? JT Realmuto, 32 years old. When you have your main core of 30 to 32 years old, it's the worst thing in the world. That's like right in the midst of your prime. If you're looking at prime years, your prime years are from 29 to 32, I would say. I don't know why people are trying to downgrade this team as old. They're still one of the youngest teams in baseball. Seriously, I believe the other day I was looking at, because people wanted to constantly bring up the how old this team is getting. The Phillies are one of the younger teams in baseball, coincidentally enough. I believe they were ranked the 9th youngest team in baseball. Like their average age was like 27 or something, like 27.9, 28 point something around there. So they're a fairly young team. They're not one of the oldest teams in baseball. Like that is a false narrative that people are trying to push. So I know a lot of people want to say that, oh, it's your injury luck. Definitely won't be the best with your starting pitching and all that stuff. You gotta worry about that because Zack Wheeler has had an injury history before. Zack Wheeler, ever since he's gone here, yeah, he's had his situations with injury, but nothing major. He's still been a very reliable arm for you. Aaron Nola has been a very reliable arm for you and a very, consistent, always there for you arm basically his entire tenure here. You really don't have to worry about injury with him. Ranger Suarez, the same thing. I'm sure the same thing with Taijuan Walker, Christopher Sanchez, and all that stuff. Yeah, Bryce Harper has been injured the past couple of seasons, but this will be his first fully healthy season. I don't expect anything bad to happen to Trey Turner. Kyle Schwarber is going to be your DH. He's going to be staying away from the field, so that means he'll just be healthier. His legs will be fresher and all that stuff. Nick Castellanos, I would assume he'll be healthy. And then you got the young guns out there. So, yeah. I really just don't think that the narrative that people are trying to push, I just think it's just like the past so many off seasons, basically since Bryce Harper came here, the Phillies were always involved in getting a major move, getting a big fish, getting that big cat. Basically, like I said, since Bryce Harper got here, it was Bryce Harper, it was JT, Zack Wheeler. Then you eventually got Schwarber, Castellanos, and all that stuff. You were basically in the market for big time free agents and big time trades every single offseason. And the first time you don't make a major move, people get a little bit underwhelmed and people get a little bit frustrated. So I can understand that aspect, but I think a lot of it's just completely overblown. There's one comparison that I do want to do, and I understand if people don't want to agree with this just because it's two completely different sports. I'd like to look at the Vegas Golden Knights of the National Hockey League. Look at basically since Vegas was inception into the National Hockey League after their inaugural season and all of that stuff when they went to the Stanley Cup final. Basically every single year they were going big fish hunting. They were going big name hunting. They were getting big free agents. They were signing big contracts. They were making big trades. They were always making a big acquisition basically every off season. When you get Petrangelo, when you get what else? I'm trying to think of Mark Stone. When you go after a Jack Eichel, when you're constantly just getting big names, when you get Robin Lehner and all that stuff, goaltending and all that crap, when you're always making big names and getting big time players, yeah, the expectations rise. And for those Vegas Golden Knights teams, they always came up short. And the one year that they don't really make any big moves, when they just make a bunch of depth moves, they fly under the radar a little bit. The year that they fly under the radar in the offseason when they're not making those big moves, that's the year they win the Stanley Cup. So I'm not trying to say anything with this Phillies team, but maybe sometimes it's the years when you don't make the gigantic move, you just let your core figure out a way. And Dave Dombrowski always did state that in the interview as well today about, learning from the Diamondback series and, getting out of those bad habits. That's something that we've been stressing this entire offseason with our hitters and our coaches and all that stuff, trying to work ourselves for this spring training to get out of those bad habits. And maybe in terms of the slow start this year, maybe the slow start doesn't happen because you'll actually have a full spring training when all of your players are actually there, when you don't have to worry about a World Baseball Classic taking a lot of your players away, to where they can actually get the reps that they need and the workout time that they need to get properly in shape and properly engage for opening day. Because maybe that was also an implication of what happened to the slow start of last season. So maybe now that you have an actual, when Kyle Schwarber, JT, and Trey Turner can actually be at spring training, when your pitchers can be at spring training, hopefully, bearing any visa issues when they're coming from, across the border and all that stuff from wherever they're at. So hopefully that wouldn't be a case. I remember that was a problem with Ranger Suarez and Gregory Soto last year. They had visa issues. So hopefully that won't be the case for them. But yeah, maybe when you have these guys in spring training, having them under your own regimen and having them under your own coaching staff instead of having to worry about what the hell Team USA is doing with these guys, what the hell is Team, Mexico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, what these other teams are doing to these guys, and you have them properly prepared for opening day and get them the workout time, the reps that they need. Maybe that can prevent, a delayed start to the season, to prevent a slow start to the year. And who knows, maybe the Phillies can do something this year in terms of, going out there competing with the Braves for the division. If you look at Fangraphs, the Phillies have the third best odds in the National League to make the playoffs. I believe it was 59%. The other two teams that are higher than them, of course, are the Braves and the Dodgers, and they have, I believe, both of those teams are above 90% to make the playoffs. So Fangraphs favor really the only thing that doesn't favor the Phillies is the Pagoda scale, and the Pagoda scale really is flawed in terms of how they view the Phillies because there's a lot of things that it just doesn't factor in with this team. It thinks Bryce Harper's lost his power in terms of what the pitching is and all that stuff. So the Pagoda scale has been very wrong about this Phillies team for the past couple of years. So I really don't look at that. I really look at Fangraphs and all that stuff because they're more accurate with their you know with their representation of how they view teams in Major League Baseball. Fangraphs is very high on the Phillies in terms of what their pitching is and all that stuff. That's why, their pitching has been tops in WAR last year. Like, seriously, their pitching was tops in WAR. I think that's something that we don't value. You know, I'm trying to think in terms of there's still definitely a lot of depth that you can go after. There's still a lot of time that you can add. They're getting a lot of these guys that have options, so maybe you add these option guys, it opens up a roster spot. Maybe Dave Dombrowski could go out there and make a move. Maybe you can go out there and make a signing. So there's still a lot of time for that. There definitely is. And as we get closer and closer towards, spring training and all that stuff, we'll get more into the Phillies talk. And I definitely can't wait for that. But yeah, that's basically where I stand at this point. I am very excited for this Phillies season. I can't wait to see these guys, get back in action. I do have spring season tickets this year with my cousin, so I'll be going to a lot of more Phillies games this year than I did last year. And yeah, it'll definitely be a very fun time, and I can't wait for every single second of it. I hope you guys are as excited as I am to watch this Phillies team again. Hopefully, you're not involved in that bunch that just doesn't believe in this team. And yeah, you'd still be upset about the NLCS, but don't be into that narrative that, like, why would this team improve? It's basically the same bunch. You know what I mean? That's basically what I'm trying to say. But, as we into the season, I can expect more arguments between guys like Sean, David, and all that stuff. I remember the arguments between you guys during the playoffs last year. Man, I don't know if I can wait for that or not. Oh God, it's definitely going to be an adventure in the live chat once we get more in the live stream phase with the Phillies recaps and all that stuff. That'll definitely be something. So, we do have a voicemail here on the Anytime Hotline. If you want to leave anything for future references or anything like that, you can leave it at 215-839-9885 right down below on your screen. So, let me bring up Sean, because he did leave a call here, and we'll see what he has to say so I can shut up and drink some water because I am very parched after talking for, 30 minutes straight? So, yeah, we're definitely going to do that. Sean, what do you have to say on the Phillies so far?
So I haven't heard the Dombrowski press conference, but I'll say this about the Phillies in general this offseason. Look, I trust Dave Dombrowski and guys going in the Hall of Fame when he hit, but I don't understand their approach at all this offseason. To me, common sense. I mean, you made it to the World Series 2 years ago and won 2 games against the team that nobody gave you a chance against. Last year, you didn't get that far. And you really seem like you're resting on your laurels. I mean, I'm shocked that they haven't done anything with the bench. I didn't expect any major moves, and I knew they were kicking the tires on Yamamoto, but at least try to improve your bench. I mean, I just worry about the approach that he's taking. A lot of the core players here are on the backside of 30, where, at that point in their career, nagging injuries start to take longer to heal from. Maybe their numbers start to deteriorate a little bit because nobody beats Father Time. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe, if they wait the market out long enough, maybe they'll spring on a guy like Jordan Montgomery or even Cody Bellinger. But right now, I'm not excited at all about the Phillies because I don't understand the direction that they're going in.
Come on, Sean. You don't have to fall into that narrative. Come on, man. I know you better than that, Sean. I'm like, come on, man. I know a lot of people are saying the microphone is low. Does it sound better now? Does it sound better now? And I think that's what we're trying to get at here. Does it sound better now? But it's just with the narrative about like I said, I do believe the narrative about this team getting older is kind of overblown. On the backside of 30, Bryce Harper's 31, Trey Turner's 30, uh, Aaron Nola's 30, Kyle Schwarber's 30, and the oldest guy out of that bunch is Zack Wheeler. Yeah, JT's 32, and yeah, for catchers that definitely is more of a concern, but he's still like right at the end of his prime. So I do think the old side of it, I think that's a little overblown because like why can't these guys that are in their 30s, why can't they still go out there and win? I don't believe that because I see a lot of guys that are still in Major League Baseball in their late 30s and they still do things. They still play to an elite level. So like why can't these Phillies players do that? So that's the less of the concerns there for me. Um, in terms of the big signings, the big fish that the Phillies were going after this offseason was Nola. That was basically it. And if they weren't able to bring back Nola, it was going to be someone to replace Nola. That was basically it. And in terms of bullpen, the bullpen is relatively the same, just minus Craig Kimbrell. And honestly, maybe that could be better for the fact. You never know. You never know. Damn it. Excuse me there. I'm sorry, boys, for all this sneezing. But bullpen wise, Dave Dombrowski is really going into the youth movement this year, and I don't blame him because you do need cost efficient guys that you can build around with your core. And cost efficient guys, that's how you build sustained success going along with the guys that you spend all the money on. That's basically it there. Oh my god. Stop with the sneezing. Holy shit. But yeah, the sneezing is kind of annoying me at the end of the day. I do need to blow my nose eventually, so I'm gonna get to you guys in the chat here. We're gonna end this stream off. I apologize for all the sneezing. At least I can step over here and mute the mic, so that does help at the end of the day. I'll give the rating right here. Like let's see what do we have here on the soundboard. I'll give the freaking do that for all the sneezing that I'm doing right now. We'll add that in there. We'll add that in there. Yeah, let me go to the live feed here. Let's see. David, how are you doing? Yep, definitely ready for 2024. I still believe Middleton and Nebraska have a blockbuster ready before spring training. You say we get Cody Bellinger. We'll see what happens there, David. We'll see what happens. I don't think it's gonna happen with Cody Bellinger. I'm very skeptical about Cody Bellinger and how he can keep up what he did with the bat. Just because right now I view last season for him as an outlier. So we'll see what happens. Healthy Nola makes your rotation at least top 10. I agree with that. Channel name, how you doing? That was Eugene with that comment. Channel name, I was kind of on the Cody Bellinger train for a little while, but it would be really cool to see Rojas develop as a hitter. I'm glad he is getting a chance because his defense is so good. Yeah. I think, even though a lot of people don't agree with Rojas, and I want to throw this comparison out there too for Rojas, even though these two people are completely different types of players. Look at what Bryson Stott in 2022 and how overmatched at times he looked as a hitter throughout that season, especially in the playoffs. He was very overmatched in that playoff run for when they went to the World Series. Teams were just pounding high fastballs after him, and he was not able to catch up to it. And look how much he developed last year in terms of a hitter and how much he adjusted to that. Now let's see what Rojas can do. Let's see how Rojas adjusts to that fastball. And yes, Bryson Stott was more in terms of his scouting report to be a very high average hitter. Rojas was more of a swing and miss guy. He was more of, he doesn't hit for average. He doesn't really hit for power. He could just be a borderline, average hitter at the end of the day, 240 hitter, 230 hitter. And I'll still take that at the end of the day. All you just need to be is a competent hitter in the 9-hole. That's all you got to be. That's all you got to be. You think there is any chance Crawford can get center field at some point next year? I don't think next year unless something really drastic happens. Crawford has to learn to lift the ball in the air and lift the ball off the ground. That's what he needs to learn to do. Can't constantly just keep hitting the ball on the ground. He's got to able to get the ball in the air. That's one thing he needs to learn how to do consistently. Zack Wheeler is ridiculously good. No reason to expect him to fall off the table yet. Exactly. He's going to be getting an extension at some point. So Zack Wheeler's one of the best pitchers in baseball. How many hit bottom feeder pitchers can Dave Dombrowski out had before camp? Super excited for baseball. Screw the Super Bowl. What else? They signed Nola. That was the goal. I wouldn't mind a good starter or a guy like Cody Bellinger, but it shouldn't be the priority. I want to see some improvements through the bullpen, I think you'll see the same exact bullpen, basically. I think the bullpen really this year is relying on Kerkering to see what he can do. And I think Sir Anthony Dominguez to bounce back. I think if you have a bounce back Sir Anthony Dominguez, that'll do a lot of benefit to your bullpen if Sir Anthony Dominguez bounces back from last season. Interesting to consider, several of the top remaining free agents are Scott Boras guys, meaning they will hold out until, yep, exactly. That's what Scott Boras does. And that's something also with the fact of the Jordan Montgomery and the Cody Bellinger situation. Scott Boras is so buddy-buddy with John Middleton and all that stuff. I think he just uses the Phillies for leverage to say that, for teams to offer more money. Like, oh, watch out. You guys better add some more money because the Phillies can always swoop in here and steal these guys. So the Phillies, I believe, from the Scott Boras side, they're more of just a leverage play when you hear the Phillies are sleepers for these guys. That's what I see at the end of the day in terms of that situation. I'm very interested in Trevor Bauer, too. He said his agent spoke with the Phillies a lot, but we aren't offering anything. He could be extremely money efficient and decent. Problem is, he thinks he's an ace. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about Trevor Bauer. I don't know if we want that. What else? What else? What else? What else? Getting those viruses from hanging out at the Wells Fargo Center, probably. Probably. Aaron Altair is having some. Don't talk about Aaron Altair, Sean. I have seen those highlights, though, from, what is it, the Dominican series or something like that. I have seen those highlights. I definitely have. Go back to Flyers hockey. Dave, don't tell me what to do. I had a Flyers recap yesterday. Go watch that. Go watch that, Dave. It's soon to be baseball season, and the Flyers are an average team. The Flyers are a fun team. The Flyers are a fun team to watch, Dave. Flyers are a fun team to watch, David. They are. Give them a chance. Give them a chance. So we're running 42 minutes on here. Yeah, I think it's a good time to end this thing and go blow my nose because I could feel it in my nose. Because you never know what at any point could come on when I could sneeze again. So yeah, I appreciate everyone here joining on, talking some baseball. Hopefully, we can when we get more consistent with this, Phillies talk as we get closer and closer to spring training. The talks will just keep surfacing, going through spring training and getting closer and closer to opening day. So yeah, getting fun and more fun by the second. So yeah, in terms of what else from the docket for the rest of this week, we'll have Flyers tomorrow, and then Saturday and then Friday, basically nothing, unless there's nothing more on the news, real or anything like that. Maybe we'll talk Flyers on Saturday. Sunday, maybe Monday, we could do something about the Super Bowl, talking about that, how it reflects on the Eagles and everything like that, because, everything ties back to the Eagles. And then, more Flyers talk as the weeks go along. I would love to incorporate some Sixers talk, but it's just, not as entertaining to watch without Joel Embiid, in my honest opinion, regardless of how good Maxey is. It's just, with some of the, when you look at the lineup some nights for the Sixers, and it's just a lot of guys that are just in and out of the lineup, it's not fun to watch in terms of the background noise. I'll be honest with you. But yeah, when you see stuff pop up in your subscription feed, you'll see it there. So I'll let you guys go. Thank you for joining tonight. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS. $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Great deal. Don't pass it up. Get yourself down to Clearwater for spring training or go down to the Wells Fargo Center. So, yeah, great deal. Don't pass it up.